Yeah. All right, I'll give it one more minute.
Tell a joke. Go Steph. Yeah, what's your best joke, Steph?
I don't know. I don't have any material right now.
This is good.
All right. Settle in. We'll be here for an hour. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, that was a joke. There you go.
There we go.
Cool. So I haven't been up here in a while. So I'm just going to go through a couple tests that the growth team has worked on in the last quarter. One that's upcoming, and yeah, to kick it off, I just wanted to frame a little bit of how we think about growth. And I think we have room to, or I have room to even probably do another presentation on how we should think about growth, and what it means and what the future could hold as we continue to try to like reach that next step function of growth. Yeah, sorry. Anything you can do to help Bailey would be great. Thanks. Okay. So how do we think about growth, right? You know, Oz 2 quarters back was always going through those 3 ways you could grow as a company. What I'm talking about specifically here is just member growth, right? How do we think about growth in order to grow our members? And how does the growth team function on a day-to-day and come up with our ideas? And one thing that we really think about is scale, right? How are we going to put things in place that when at scale, or will function very well at scale? And how do we build growth mechanisms that work and are strong, and that when we grow as a company, those mechanisms continue to grow? So things like one-off campaigns that, while can be very effective, we don't necessarily look at it as like, oh, that's what we want to achieve, right? We don't want to once a month have to recreate the wheel and have a great spike that then goes away and we have to recreate the next month. It's great to test things and see some sort of a spike. So we do a lot of win-back campaigns, for example, and that's great. But as a growth team, we then take a step back and say, okay, how do we then put that into the product so that it's then running on its own? And that's what we're thinking about as far as making it scalable. Okay, so that's kind of an example. Another way that we frame up growth is thinking about growing through our members. So that basically means our referral program, right? Our members can help us grow to new members. How do we get them to tell their friends? How do we keep track of it? How do we get them to do it more often, etc.? So I think most of you guys know that we work a lot in the referral program. And then another way we look at growth is just how do actions that our members take within the product unlock new opportunities for new leads to come in. So an example of that is when someone adds someone to a workspace, right? A member is in a workspace, they need to add another business they're working with to come in and do something in HoneyBook. That introduces a new lead into our system just through using the product, right? So those are the things that we focus on most of our time. 80% we focus on the referral program, about 20% product right now as a growth team. The examples that I'm going to give are, 2 of them they're kind of all about the referral program, but one of them is kind of a mix of product and referral program. If you have questions along the way, I'd say ask along the way, because I'm so in this every day that I forget what is not common knowledge. So feel free to ask. Cool. So the first test that we ran that is just interesting was what I'm calling Facebook share versus copy link. And what that means is, for anyone who doesn't know, we have a referral modal in the product. So if I'm a member, I'll get to how you get to this modal, but if I'm a member and I come in every day, working on my business, there's a little coin in the top right corner of the top nav, and when you click that, a modal appears, and that's what we call the referral modal. We had, I think in Q4 or Q1, I don't remember, completely changed the modal to the version that you see here from a very old, ugly version, and we saw great results. It was just cleaner, more clear messaging, etc. And we wanted to keep optimizing and improving that modal. So we originally had Share with Facebook as the main CTA. And our hypothesis was basically, Facebook is scary. If we can just give members a way to copy their referral link and just feel like they have it and it can do whatever they want with it, they don't have to share on Facebook, that we can improve engagement with this modal, but maybe even just the referral program on the whole, because they have a little bit more ownership over their links. So we launched an A/B test, right? So it's going to be the Facebook share versus copy link, right in that modal. It was just A/B test, split 50-50, and it launched April 2nd. Yeah. And the results are interesting. So what I feel like I give it away when I tell you it's interesting. You'll see that later. But so which one was engaged with more? Any guesses here? Wow, this is interesting. It was B. A lot more. Like, people were clicking on this a ton. I mean, I put it plus 100%. Early on, it was like plus 250%. But it went down a little bit, but still, like, double the amount of people were just coming in, clicking. We were like, oh my God, amazing. We A/B tested and like increased it by 100%. That's wild. And we were pretty happy, but it was early on in the test, so we let it run a little bit more. And we looked at the data a little deeper, went down the funnel, and any guesses on which one brought in more trialers? That's where the interesting was a giveaway. Yeah, so Facebook sharing, although people clicked on it a lot less, engaged with that specific form of the modal a lot less, when they did, sharing on Facebook was bringing in a ton more trialers. So at the end of the day, when we're looking at growth and what we really value, it's trialers. And specifically, why trialers is so important for the referral program is because it equals wins. Our conversion rate from trialer to win is super high, like 35% sometimes, or at least 30%. So for us, bringing in trialers through this is number one goal. So this was a super interesting test, like definitely a great learning about A/B testing, where you can't always take things at face value. You need to go and dig a little bit deeper into the data. And honestly, Yona was doing a lot of that, so I can't take like full credit. But it really revealed to us like what could be pretty game-changing as we not only work on this modal, but we have a whole referral dashboard. All right, go ahead, Chris.
We tried doing both A and B.
Ooh, thanks for teeing that one up. So that is our next test. It's in our next sprint, because this sprint just ended. In our next sprint, we're going to A/B test having both of them, one on top of the other. And honestly, it's like we just don't know what's going to happen. But we feel like we need to, we could just shift and say, no, Facebook won, brought us more trialers, let's go with that. But we kind of just want to see what the behavior is when we present both. So yeah, we are going to test that, and these tests only take a couple weeks, so we feel like we can kind of get that result pretty quickly. Chris?
gonna test the share link on top and the Facebook link on bottom, or in reverse?
I
Just
believe
one word?
it is, I think copy is on top. I think we could test both.
See which one was better.
It's not live yet, so. Yeah, we could reorder. Anyways, that's happening, which I think will be interesting again. But then hopefully after we kind of get to this, what's everyone's favorite CTA, we can start really playing with the body of this and the messaging and get to this modal that we love. But yeah, that was a really cool test, and I just thought it was a good learning to share. Next test that we launched, I feel like not a lot of people know about this, so I definitely want to share it, but it's something that we called dynamic milestones, which doesn't mean anything. But what it is, dynamic milestones. I just put two like, oh gosh, good band name. But what this is another play on the modal that you just saw. So I wanted to present this one after. So it's using that same referral modal, but for a different function. So we actually, while the first A/B test that you saw was 50-50, we moved it to like 25-25, and this, what you're gonna see now, took up the other 50%. So like, this is our lives that we do in growth. We just slice and dice everything and test our faces off. So anyways, the test here is, the hypothesis was if we can give our members a more personalized experience and reinforce the value of HoneyBook along the way, it will motivate them to either share this out and by the nature of sharing, refer other members. So this happens, and you'll see it, but it happens within that same modal. So it's something that they've been trained to know that this is tied to the referral program, that modal. And we also had feedback from other tests we had run that when we make like UI changes, it compels the user to say like, oh, like something changed here, like let me click on that. So we can kind of, this is complicated, so I'm trying to think how to best describe it. But we can, by changing the UI once in a while when they reach a milestone, it can like spark potentially like an engagement, a little spike in engagement, but because we're doing it like sustainably, we're doing this for all members at many milestones, we're not just reaching a spike like once and letting it go away, right? We're kind of creating these moments that come and go and prompt people to engage with the referral program. So we created 4 milestones for our members. The first one is reaching 2K in transactions, which is when they move into the premium referral program, which is just giving 50% off, getting 200. Then it's 10 booked projects, 25K in transactions, and 1 year on HoneyBook. We picked these, they were like relatively arbitrary, mostly centered around making sure they're spaced out enough. And also like what might people care about, which we're still gonna learn. But this is what happens. So when you're a member, you know, this is your pipeline, obviously, and usually you'll have, where you see that little flag, that's actually usually where the referral coin lives, okay? So they know that they're in their pipeline every day, but when they have a milestone, it changes to this little flag, okay? So visually something changes for them. And when they click on it, okay, they get, I wish this was actually live because it like animates in very nicely and the flag like pops down and it's like really, really fun. But they get this message of like the milestone that they just passed, right? So 10 projects strong, you just booked your 10th project, stop and enjoy the view. I should just read it off the screen. Hey, Charlie, celebrate your achievement and bring others along on the journey. And then share with Facebook, see more ways to share. Yeah, Yeah, so this is something that happens 4 times in a member's lifetime. It's definitely a long-term test. It's going to take us a little bit while to get the results, but it's something that we can let run on 50% and still have other enough volume to play with other things, as you guys saw. But it's kind of exciting because it's one moment that we take to like reinforce the value of HoneyBook and also just congratulate our members on doing something awesome, like growing their business, or thank them for being on HoneyBook for a full year. And I feel like when we've done that in the past, we did it with an email once that got like great results. Like people just love like a good fist pump and like being proud of themselves. So that's kind of the qualitative feedback that spurred this milestone idea. Yeah.
So long-term tests, are we seeing like what's the average amount of time that it takes for a user to get to 10 projects or to 2K?
So to 2K is pretty quick. It's about 1.5 booked projects, which is like 4 to 5 weeks usually. So, and we know that because that's when they enter the premium referral program. So that's pretty quick. And then the 10 booked projects, I think what we wanted to do is space it out by about somewhere between 60 and 90 days. So I think it's like another 2 months on average. Again, it's like averages, so we had to be careful. And then it's like another couple months, and then obviously 1 year. So there's 2 ways we can kind of look at this, right? Because you're going to get the data for, does any kind of milestone modal, like what's the conversion just from any of those modals to referring? And then we get the data of like, oh, does one of these specific milestones, like 1 year on HoneyBook, does that mean more? Are people engaging with that one specifically more? Where that tells us like, oh, like maybe we should just make a way bigger deal around people being on HoneyBook for a year. Like maybe we should send them swag. Like maybe we should just do more. So there's kind of 2 layers that I think we'll look at once we get an update.
Sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
So you might cover this, but are we seeing that certain vendor types refer more than others?
So I don't cover it in this, but Noam just did like a huge data pull for us, and we definitely see that photographers obviously refer a lot. Event planners refer a lot, I think by the nature of them working with a lot of vendors. And there are like 2 or 3, well, I just named 2, so there's like maybe 1 or 2 more that are definitely more prone to referring.
Any surprises like lower volume vendor types that you see might, like florists, we don't have so many of them.
There's like interesting things where florists refer other florists, like because we also looked at who did they refer, and I have all that data and I can give it to you. Yeah, we'll have to do a deeper dive on data, but there's a ton going on. But that's a good question. And we thought about like, do we do things by vertical type when we change the messaging here? That's where we have space to do that if we want to. Okay, cool. How am I on time? Well, it was plural. The S is down there, I guess. Cool. So the next test that we have upcoming, that I think is interesting because it kind of marries where in the beginning I was talking about using the product to create new leads for ourselves and also the referral program. This one kind of marries the 2. And we just call it referrals in workspaces. So the hypothesis is that if we can introduce a really organic way for one member to refer someone that they've added to the workspace and we know doesn't use HoneyBook yet, and we just kind of tee it up for them, then that will increase specifically increase first-time referrals, right? So we have about 76% of our members don't refer, That's to say like 24% do. That's pretty good for a referral program, like very strong. But we're trying to just increase that number. And one of these ways is adding referrals in the workspaces. We dug up the data. We've got enough workspaces that have one member and one vendor. Not quite 7.6, because when you add the filters of like doesn't use HoneyBook, isn't, we're not doing this for non-event types. It gets a little smaller, but the volume is there. And the biggest piece of feedback I've gotten is that people don't know who to refer. I've never gotten like, I hate the referral program, stop throwing it in my face. Like, we don't get that, which is great. We just get, I don't know who to refer, or everyone uses HoneyBook, right? So by just really, I get that a lot. No, I get that a lot. Everyone uses HoneyBook that I know. I'm like, okay, great. Are you sure? But yeah, by showing them and just telling people very blatantly, like, hey, this person doesn't use HoneyBook, you can refer them and get $200. We think there's a lot of opportunity there. So this is how it will look, and the copy isn't final. This is a screenshot. But this is a space in the workspace where they're used to seeing messages, system messages, and we styled it a little bit differently, where it's kind of like a pro tip rather than a warning, where sometimes they get warnings here. And it pretty much just says like, hey, this is Tobias, is the Add to Workspace member. Doesn't use HoneyBook yet, want to share your personal referral discount. And we'll be tracking all, like both CTAs here, so if we see enough that, like, no thanks, like we'll know that people aren't interested in this at the time. But if they hit earn $200, or we might also test that button copy. It'll just open up a feed message with a default copy in there. And they'll be able to send it right within the feed. It's also important to note that we're not going to show this banner like immediately when they add someone to the workspace. That's really aggressive. For project dates that have an end date, we'll show it a week before. We're pulling the data to get a better time slot, like the right time slot. But for projects that have an end date, we'll show it like 5 days or a week before and say like, hey, you almost have, the message says, we're almost at the end of the project. Like, I wanted to say thanks and pass along my referral discount. And we just feel like it's a more natural time. Like, they've gotten their work done. We didn't interrupt them when they first added the person to the workspace. We feel like that timing is pretty crucial. For projects that don't have an end date, we're still looking into the data of like, how long is the average project from when they were added to the last message, and we'll try to slot it in there. Asha, if you have any ideas on that, let me know. Yeah. But that's what we're figuring out. And we think this could be, I'm pretty excited to see the results. Yes. Again, we're doing it for event type businesses only because we worked with Asha to understand how non-event types are using the workspace, and it's just different when they add someone to the workspace. So we just wanted to keep that clean for now. Yeah, and this is expected to launch June 10th. And some of the things we'll be looking at is obviously the engagement on the calls to action, trialers from this specific referral flow, and just, as like a health metric, if we see conversion for Add to Workspace members go up, we'll obviously look if this was a helping aspect of that. That's all I have for right now. I feel like I could come back and share a lot of other things, so I'll be sure to do that more often. But any questions? Okay, thanks.
I thought about, are you guys